Commitment 2024 special, the Granite State Debates.
Manchester native Joyce Craig graduated from Memorial High School and UNH. She started her political career on the school board before becoming an alderman and then mayor of the Queen City.
My record of mayor of Manchester is something that I'm very proud of. I have the executive experience. I have been on the front line dealing with our statewide challenges, implementing evidence-based solutions and making progress on those challenges.
Cinde Warmington worked as a lawyer in private practice before getting elected to the Executive Council in 2020, serving as the only Democrat on the council for the last 2 terms. Now she's hoping to go from being the highest-ranking Democrat in state government to winning the governor's seat herself.
You've got a housing crisis that's underpinning our homelessness problem, the workforce shortage that we have, and the fact that our young people can't afford to stay and raise their own families in our state. So we need to tackle the problems that have gone unaddressed for too long.
John Kiper is a Seacoast native and Exeter High School grad who lived in Australia before coming back to his home state. A newcomer to state politics, he's a restaurant owner, artist, and former member of the Newmarket Town Council, trying to bring a working-class viewpoint to the corner office.
People trust me because I'm a working-class person, and frankly, I'm struggling with housing myself. So if you want someone that's going to fight for housing, elect someone who needs housing. You know, I live in a 740 square foot apartment with my girlfriend and my son here. We want more kids, and frankly, we're struggling to find a house in New Hampshire that we can live in within the vicinity of the restaurant that I own.
Tonight, the Democratic candidates for governor.
Thank you for joining us tonight for the Granite State Debates. I'm WMUR Political Director Adam Sexton. Tonight, we're hearing from the Democratic candidates for governor. Those 3 candidates are joining us live tonight. They'll be answering questions from me and from our panelists. Those panelists tonight are WMUR anchors Monica Hernandez and Steve Botari. Here's a look at our format. Each candidate will get up to 60 seconds to answer a question. They'll have 30 seconds for a rebuttal if necessary, and those will be granted at my discretion. Candidates will also be given 60 seconds at the end of the hour to make a closing statement. Let's get things started tonight with Steve Botari.
Adam, thank you. Today there has been yet another mass shooting in this country, this time in Georgia at a school. The details are still unfolding, but officials say 2 students and 2 teachers were killed, several more injured after a 14-year-old student opened fire. Mayor Craig, you've proposed an assault weapons sales ban, red flag laws, expanded background checks, and waiting periods. These exist in other states, yet they haven't stopped this type of violence. So why would it be any different here in New Hampshire?
Well, thank you, Steve, for the question. I want to thank WMUR and everyone who is tuning in this evening. You know, I want to start by saying last night you saw Kelly Ayotte's vision for our state, a vision where the most wealthy get ahead and the rest of the individuals in our state are left behind. And tonight you'll hear a different vision, my vision for the state that focuses on supporting our local communities, decreasing housing costs and energy costs, making sure we're strengthening our public schools and protecting reproductive rights. And to your question, Steve, we have to do everything we can to protect families in our state from gun violence. We know that we are not immune to this. And in the city of Manchester, as mayor, I implemented the city's first gun violence prevention strategy and have put forward a common sense plan to address gun violence in our state that says that we will require universal background checks, red flag laws, and prohibit guns from being brought into our schools. All while Kelly Ayotte, after Sandy Hook, was the only senator in all of New England who voted against universal background checks when 20 children were shot and murdered.
Councilor Warmington, you support these same policies. Why would they be effective here in the Granite State where we've seen them fail in other places?
You know, one of the most heartbreaking things that you see on the campaign trail is when you talk to parents who are sending their children off to school for the first time and they tell you that they are afraid. Parents shouldn't be afraid to send their kids to school. I've proposed a comprehensive gun violence prevention plan that is common sense gun violence prevention that the people of New Hampshire would want. They want universal background checks. The people of New Hampshire support red flag rules and 3-day waiting periods. And yes, we have proposed an assault weapons ban because we need to, as our first priority, to keep the people of our state safe. And that's what I will do as governor. I am going to be a governor who focuses on the working families of our state and the needs of our state, and not on catering to special interests.
Mr. Kiper, you've said your party is getting it wrong when it comes to the approach to this policy debate. Why?
Well, I want to start by saying my heart goes out to the folks in Georgia that suffered this brutal tragedy that happens too often. And, you know, my belief is that the Democratic Party needs to change the way they talk about guns, because every time we elect a Democratic president, we have a record gun sales. We hit a new record in gun sales. And that's why I think we need to bring gun owners to the table and say we need safe gun laws that protect our children, and that's what I support.
I'm going to follow up with a question to you, Councilor Warmington. You've noted that you support an assault-style weapons ban. If that became law, what happens to all of the AR-15 rifles that are already in possession of private citizens right now in the Granite State?
You know, we will enact a gun violence prevention plan that's comprehensive, that will include the ban on assault weapons. We've done this before in our country. We can do it again. If the legislature so chooses, we may implement a buyback program. That will be up to the legislature. We will be working through the details, but we will be working towards the ban of these assault weapons. We do not need military weapons on our streets in New Hampshire.
Mayor Craig, what happens to all of the weapons that are in circulation that you would want to ban for sale?
So first, we will not be going after gun owners who are responsible gun owners. And we would consider a buyback program with the federal government who is responsible for something like that. But what we have to do is make sure that we are keeping our families and residents safe in this state. There is nothing more important. And as mayor, that's exactly what I did working with the Manchester Police Department. We decreased violent crime by 40%, implemented the first gun violence prevention strategy, and we will take that experience to the governor's office and make sure we are implementing common sense gun laws in our state to protect families.
Mr. Kiper, is this a policy problem or a culture problem?
You know, you got to just wonder, how did a 14-year-old get a gun like that? And how do we, hold parents accountable when their children do things like this? And how do we just really get gun owners to understand that they're responsible for what happens to their weapons, and they need to be locking them up and treating them like the very dangerous things that they are?
Next question coming from Monica Hernandez.
Thank you, Adam. And now let's turn to other top issues facing Granite Staters, including the cost of living. Housing is part of that. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But other costs like groceries for example, are high too. For example, compared to 2019, a pound of ground beef is up 43%, eggs up 126%. And while the governor cannot lower inflation, they can work on some policies to boost the state's economy and put money back into Granite Staters' pockets. So what is a new law or policy that you would push on day one to relieve the financial pressure that so many Granite Staters tell us they are feeling? And Mayor Craig, we'll start with you.
Well, thank you. And as I'm traveling around this state, I am hearing that people are burdened with high costs. So it is a focus of mine to ensure that we are decreasing costs for our hardworking families. And as mayor of Manchester, I have the experience of putting forward budgets that prioritize the needs of our community with public safety, with education, with infrastructure and housing. And that's the same approach that I'll bring to the governor's office. We need to be aware and make sure that we are doing everything we can to lower costs for our residents. We can do that by investing in renewable energy. And that is the first thing that I would do to decrease costs for our residents. We have a tremendous opportunity to really invest in renewable energy and transition away from fossil fuel, making sure that our residents have opportunities to save when they are paying for their utilities, and invest and save when they are the opportunity with solar or offshore wind, bringing new energy into our state.
Mr. Kiper, same question.
So the leading cause of inflation is housing, and it's really the only part of the economic puzzle that we can address, frankly, because we have been artificially constraining the supply of housing through our maze of planning and zoning laws. So that's something that I would like to address on day one and teach our planning and zoning folks why it is that we need more housing, because that's really stopping us from bringing inflation down and creating more supply of housing.
Mayor Warmington will now pose this question to you. Or,
Sure.
excuse me, Councilor Warmington.
Everywhere we go across the state, I hear from working families how difficult it is to make ends meet. The cost of housing, the cost of childcare, the cost of food, the cost of energy. We really need a governor that makes decisions through the lens of the working families of our state, that prioritizes their needs. That is a very different picture than our Republican opponent, Kelly Ayotte, would bring to the table. Kelly Ayotte voted, for instance, to take away the Affordable Care Act, which saves health care costs for so many families, and to undermine the ability of people to buy houses. But she participates on a corporate board that actually purchases housing, jacks up the cost, evicts people. Kelly Ayotte isn't interested in decreasing the cost for working families in our state. I'll be a governor who makes decisions through the lens of the working families of our state. That will be my top priority from day one.
Next question coming from Steve Botari.
Adam, we turn now to housing. A new report says the average income needed to afford a 2-bedroom apartment here in New Hampshire is $73,000 a year. But the income of an average renter's household is $20,000 less than that. Mr. Kiper, to you first. Please tell us your plan to address the lack of affordable rental housing. And if the solution is to build more apartments, what do you do in the meantime?
That's a really good question. So as a restaurant owner, I'm intimately aware of this problem because my employees have needed raises lately, and I've had to raise the price of my food, and we see how inflation is driven by this cycle. And that's why creating more housing is essential. I don't think we're in a position of putting rent caps in New Hampshire. That's not going to happen. So we really have to attack the supply. And the way to do that is to put money into affordable housing in New Hampshire. So I've got a plan to legalize cannabis, sell it the same way that we sell liquor, and take that profit and put it into housing through organizations like the New Hampshire Housing Authority. Thank you.
Councilor Warmington, how do you address the lack of affordable rental housing? And if it's to build more apartments, what are you doing in the short term?
Yeah, everywhere you go across the state, you're hearing about the lack of affordable housing in our state. Small businesses can't hire people because there's no place for them to actually live here in the state. Young people can't afford to stay here and raise their own families here, and our seniors can't afford to make ends meet. As executive counselor, when the governor came to the executive council with $100 million of housing money, I made sure that money went to affordable housing. I reached across the table, worked with my other counselors. We sent that back to the governor. It came back to us with guardrails around affordable housing, and we're building thousands of those units across the state right now. As governor, I will prioritize this because we need to be working with our developers to make sure they will build in the state. Developers tell me that means we're going to have to change our zoning ordinances. We need to invest our economic development money in communities that want to build housing in our state. That's how we're going to get it done. We're going to cut the red tape and make sure it's easier to build housing in our state.
Mayor Craig, same question to you.
Well, thank you. As mayor, I took on this statewide challenge and brought results to Manchester. Today, we have over 2,000 housing units in development. I allocated over $30 million toward affordable housing. And I worked with our neighborhoods to make sure the housing that we built met their needs. And this hands-on experience is absolutely critical to tackling this statewide challenge. I'm the only candidate in this race who has put forward a comprehensive plan to address the housing crisis in our state. It includes things like the state partnering with our local communities, providing technical assistance to help them modify their zoning ordinances so they can accept more housing, providing more funding to New Hampshire Finance Authority, building out infrastructure that we know is a challenge for local communities, some who want to build more housing. They don't have the water and sewer. So helping them with funding either from the state or the federal government so we can get these housings done. We know there's a lot of red tape with funding that has come from the state. I've heard it directly from developers. I've encountered it here in the city. So we have to cut the red tape and get these homes built now.
Next question from Monica Hernandez.
Rent is expensive. We talked about that, but the cost of buying a home in New Hampshire has also exploded. 10 years ago, the median price was $227,000. Today, that's more than doubled to more than $500,000. Many we talk with say that buying a home is out of reach. Councillor Warmington, we pose this question first to you. What do you say to a voter who thinks they will never be able to afford a home in New Hampshire?
I have encountered these voters myself. A police officer who's working full-time. His wife is an LNA. They are both working full-time, yet they recognize that they will never be able to afford to buy a home in our state, and that is just plain wrong. We need a governor who is making decisions through the lens of the working families of our state. We need to do everything we can to build housing. We have the Housing Champions program that helps build out water and sewer infrastructure in communities so they can accept a greater density of housing. We have programming to help with communities to change their zoning ordinances. Also, we have a lot of surplus land in our state that we should be getting back to our communities so that they can help to build housing that is more affordable for the people of our state. But as governor, I am going to see this issue through the lens of the working families. That's where my priorities will always be.
Mayor Craig, what do you say to those who don't think they'll ever be able to afford a home in New Hampshire?
Yeah, it's not right. And we need a governor who has the hands-on experience of tackling this challenge and doing it throughout our state. And I do. We need to build more housing. We need to do it now. We need a governor who understands what the challenges are and who can work with our local communities to build the housing that meets their needs. We also have to look at the minimum wage in our state. Right now, it's at $7.35. That is not a livable wage. In Manchester, I effectively increased the minimum wage for all city and school district employees to $15 an hour. We need to consider that when we're talking about what people can afford or not. And we need a governor who can effectively bring good paying jobs into our state. And again, as mayor, we applied for a very competitive federal grant for the biomanufacturing industry. And we won. We were the only municipality to win, and we brought 7,000 good paying jobs into the city of Manchester. We have to look at everything to make sure that young people can afford to live and want to stay in New Hampshire.
And Mr. Kiper, what do you say to those who don't think they'll ever be able to afford a home here in our state?
It's going to be a little while. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not going to happen in a 2-year term as governor of New Hampshire. But one thing I was able to do when I was on the town council in Newmarket was push the planning board to allow unattached ADUs or accessory dwelling units, or a cottage in your backyard, if you will. And I think this would be a great approach if older folks could put a little cottage in their backyard, move into the cottage, and then rent out their house, or even maybe sell their house. This would be a really pretty simple way for us to increase the housing stock without massive development. Thank you.
Next question comes from me. Councillor Warmington and Mayor Craig, you've both now aired ads claiming that the other has profited off the drug addiction crisis. Mayor Craig started with an ad alleging that you, Councillor Warmington, profited off the opioid crisis as a lobbyist for Purdue Pharma, which made OxyContin, and as a lawyer for local pain care clinics. You have a chance to address Mayor Craig right now. What would you like to say to her about this?
You know, like many people in our state, I know the pain of having a family member who is struggling with opioids. And so I am disgusted that Joyce Craig is attacking me for legal work I did 22 years ago, long before Purdue Pharma's lies were known. I have spent decades helping families who are devastated by addiction. Joyce Craig is smearing me because she can't defend her record in Manchester. Overdose deaths up 52% per capita, homelessness up 377%. Now Joyce Craig says she wants to run New Hampshire like she ran Manchester? Seriously? If so, Democrats will lose New Hampshire the way they lost Manchester, and you don't have to take my word for it. The voters of Manchester rejected Joyce Craig's agenda in the last election. They voted Republican when Democrats won all around the state. If I am the nominee in this race, Joyce Craig, this election will be about Kelly Ayotte's failed record, not Joyce Craig's.
Mayor Craig, you were invoked.
Thank you. The facts are that Cinde Warmington was a Purdue Pharma lobbyist. She said that OxyContin was a miracle drug. She was a business agent for a notorious pill mill in Somersworth that pushed pills into all of our communities. And then she took $69,000 from these bad actors for her campaigns. Those are the facts. Voters need to know our full records, and it is very clear that Cinde Warmington cannot stand behind her record. I have spent my entire time as mayor fighting the opioid epidemic and saving lives. And we need a governor who will do the same thing. And when it comes to Manchester and the challenges that we're facing, I think it is pathetic that Councillor Warmington is spewing Republican talking points. The challenges that we face in Manchester are the same challenges that are faced throughout our state, and we have made significant progress in these areas.
Councillor, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Joyce Craig's attacks on me are completely bogus, and she knows better. I was acting as a lawyer in 2002, long before anyone knew of Purdue Pharma's lies. And I represented hundreds of healthcare clients. To cherry pick those is completely bogus. But more than that, Joyce Craig personally profited off the defense of opioid dealers that were putting opioids and cocaine and fentanyl on the streets of Manchester. She lives in a glass house, and she's throwing stones now to cover up her own failed record in Manchester.
It is beyond the pale that Cinde Warmington is bringing family members into this election. We are on the ballot. Our family is not on the ballot. And the fact is that Cinde Warmington was a Purdue Pharma lobbyist. She was a business agent for a notorious pill mill in Somersworth that contributed heavily to the opioid epidemic that we have been fighting in the state of New Hampshire for decades. She cannot stand behind her record. I can. I am proud of the work that we've done in Manchester, and we have made significant progress decreasing opioid overdoses by 20% in the time that I was mayor.
We do want to give Mr. Kiper a chance here. You know, you've been critical of your opponents about opioids, Councillor Warmington as lobbyist, Mayor Craig for her handling of the crisis, but without any executive political experience of your own, how can you get that job done?
You know, it's really about relationships. You know, it's about who I know in this state, and I've met so many people through my restaurant, people at UNH, and people at the university system, people in the private sector and the public sector. And the great thing about me is that, frankly, I have not received the millions of donations that my counterparts here have received, which means that I can pick people for jobs, you know, as governor, that I don't need to go to my donors and ask them first, you know, if this person is okay. I don't have to pick someone for, you know, commission of education based on my political standings in the party.
Next question comes from...
I have to interrupt, Adam. Joyce Craig did invoke me again, and I just have to say that Joyce Craig, as mayor, signed a form every single year, notarized and under oath, that she had a personal financial interest in the law firm that her husband is participating in. I don't know what that financial interest is, but she had a personal financial interest profiting off the trafficking of drugs in her city. And when this was pointed out last week, I noticed that the law firm quickly took that page down off of their website in an apparent attempt to hide what they've actually been doing. Joyce Craig says that she has been focused on fighting the opioid epidemic, but we've heard from harm reduction people in the community
Councillor,
how she consistently impeded their efforts to save lives.
Mayor Craig, we'll give you a response, and then we're going to move on.
Thank you. I'm going to reiterate the facts in this election. We are on the ballot. Our full records are on the ballot. Part of Councillor Warmington's record includes being a Purdue Pharma lobbyist, being a business agent for a pill mill that pushed pills into our communities and contributed to this crisis that we've been dealing with. I'd like to ask Councillor Warmington, when are you going to apologize to residents in our state for what you've done?
It is really unbelievable that Joyce Craig sits here and asks for an apology for someone providing legal work years before Purdue Pharma's lies were known. Joyce Craig oversaw a 52% increase in opioid deaths per capita in her city. She oversaw her own health department called Manchester the epicenter of the opioid crisis, and it was with 2 to 3 times the highest rates of opioid overdoses as any other city in New Hampshire. Joyce Craig has failed the people of New Hampshire.
Okay. Quick response from Mayor Craig, and then we're going to move on.
We have seen a 20% decrease in opioid overdoses in the city of Manchester. The city of Manchester put forward the first comprehensive harm reduction plan. We have worked with our fire department to do outreach, with our nonprofits, with our faith-based groups. We have done everything we could to address the opioid crisis in New Hampshire, in Manchester, and we have made significant progress. Councillor Warmington cannot say that about her full record. We need a governor who will focus on addressing this opioid crisis and making sure we are doing everything we possibly can to help individuals in need. And I will do that.
Next question.
I have spent decades
Councillor,
working in
we've really made I think we've made our points here, and we're going over the same ground over and over again. We want to get to a lot of different issues here, so let's take a question now from Monica Hernandez.
Councillor Warmington, you have said that you want to repeal New Hampshire's current abortion law, which restricts the procedure after 24 weeks with some exceptions. This law is in line with abortion laws in states like California, Massachusetts, and New York, which prohibit the procedure after a fetus reaches viability. Why should New Hampshire have fewer restrictions than some of the most liberal states in the country?
This election is about freedom. And freedom for women starts with being able to make their own reproductive health care decisions. It starts with being able to plan and prevent and space our pregnancies. And we need to ensure that we have access to safe and legal abortion in our state. This ban of the governor's is a dangerous ban. I have called it out from the beginning. It criminalizes doctors for providing medically necessary care, and it jeopardizes the life and the safety of women. It interferes with our entire maternal fetal health care system by discouraging doctors from practicing in our state because they fear that if they make a decision in an urgent situation, that it can be second-guessed by boards and prosecutors in our state after the fact, and that their license or liberty could be at risk. This is a dangerous ban. We need to make sure that we repeal this ban and replace it with access to safe and legal abortion in our state.
Mr. Kiper, should the current policy in New Hampshire be repealed? And if so, why should New Hampshire have a less restrictive law than some states like New York and Massachusetts?
I do not believe the government should be involved in medical decisions, period. It doesn't really matter if it's abortion or any type of surgery or any type of, procedure that someone wants to get. I do not think the government should be involved because there's just so many things that can go wrong, and you just cannot legislate for all those eventualities. And I think it's really important for people to understand that the governor cannot just legalize abortion or change the law themselves. We need majorities in all the branches of government to do that, and that's why I believe that I'm the best candidate, because I can get young people and working class people out to vote in November, and we can win those majorities in not just the Senate and the House, but also the Executive Council, so that we can start funding Planned Parenthood again. Thank you for the question.
Now, Mayor Craig, you have also said that you support repealing New Hampshire's current abortion law. Why should our state have fewer restrictions than some of the most liberal states in the country?
So I trust women to make their own healthcare decisions and don't believe government plays a role in a decision that should be between a woman and her doctor, and I will fight to ensure it stays that way. And we need to remember what just happened last session. We had Republicans put forward a 15-day and a 15-week abortion ban. These restrictions are going to continue. And let's talk about Kelly Ayotte, because she has supported a national abortion ban. She has voted 6 times to defund Planned Parenthood. She shepherded Neil Gorsuch through the Supreme Court process and then celebrated when Roe v. Wade was overturned. Reproductive freedom is on the ballot. And I want to be very, very clear with everyone. I support a woman's choice to choose, and I will fight to ensure it stays that way.
Quick follow-up for the candidates here, and we'll start with you, Mayor Craig. Democrats get mad when Republicans say the phrase abortion up until the moment of birth, saying it's wildly misleading. So here's a simple yes or no question. Do you personally oppose elective abortion after a fetus reaches viability, Mayor Craig?
Adam, we've talked about this. It is a Republican talking point. It's not happening in New Hampshire. We need to make sure women have a choice to make about their own bodies, and I will ensure that that happens as governor.
Mr. Kiper.
You know, I really think that men should, frankly, stay out of this debate. I think that women should be able to, live their lives how they choose and get whatever medical procedures they choose to or choose not to get. And as a man, I just think that I do not have the right to make that call. Thank you.
Councilor Warmington.
You know, there is no such thing as an elective abortion in the third trimester of pregnancy. It simply doesn't exist. This is a Republican talking point, and it is intended to divide us. Right now, we have a situation where women in their third trimester, if they have a tragic situation, their life and safety is at risk because their doctors are not permitted to make the decisions they need to make. They essentially have to consult with a lawyer before they can deliver the health care that women need. I trust women and in consultation with their doctors to make the right decisions.
Next question coming from Steve Botari.
Adam, thank you. Candidates, all of you support cannabis legalization here in New Hampshire. Mr. Kiper, to you first. You've already talked about here tonight how you would use the tax revenue for housing, but what would marijuana sales specifically look like under your leadership? What are the parameters for legislation that you would support?
So I have talked to a lot of people in the cannabis debate that's been happening for a number of years. So I came up with a plan that I think will please the Republican members of the Senate as well as the cannabis lobbyists. So my idea is basically we have a couple of different licenses. We would have a home grow permit where you could grow 5 or so plants. We would have what I'd call the farmer's market permit where you could grow, let's say, maybe 5 or 10, maybe 20 plants, maybe a little bit more, and then you could sell that to your friends or at a farmer's market. Then I would allow the current medicinal cannabis shops to become fully recreational and for-profit. They're currently nonprofit, run as a nonprofit. And also I would have the state be selling larger quantities of cannabis in a model similar to the Liquor Commission, but a completely separate entity because it's still federally illegal. And this would be aimed at trying to get some of the revenue back from the folks from Massachusetts, Vermont, and Maine, where our money has been going for the last several years. And hopefully if someone's driving up from Massachusetts, they stop at the liquor store, they buy some liquor, they buy some cannabis, and they help fund our affordable housing. Thank you.
Mayor Craig, what would your plan be, and what specifically would you do with the money generated?
Yes, so it is time to legalize cannabis in New Hampshire. All of the neighboring states around us have, and there is a significant amount of revenue that we could be bringing into our state to go toward public education, to go toward affordable housing, critical needs in the state of New Hampshire. The model that I would be looking at is more of a small business entrepreneurial model with local control, and a model that really supports and encourages local farmers to participate. So the model would really be supportive of the New Hampshire economy. And I would work with the legislature to get this done. I'm not going to just wait for something to come to my desk. This is important legislation that needs to pass, and I am committed to working to make sure that that happens.
Councilor Warmington, your plan, and how specifically are you using the revenue from it?
I agree that we need to bring legalized cannabis in our state. The people of our state have spoken on this issue. They are driving over the borders to purchase this product that they wish to use for adult use. The revenue is going to our surrounding states. We really need to get this done in the legislature. I'm very disappointed that it didn't happen in the last session. I would support a model that we can work together with the legislature to find a hybrid between the franchise model and the model that the free market model, where we can have control to protect the access to medicinal cannabis and make sure that we are implementing a product that is in a way that is safe and make sure that the young people don't access it. We can do this together by sitting down and working together in the same way that I have as executive counselor, reaching across that table and getting things done in a bipartisan way. This is a bipartisan issue, and it also can bring jobs to our economy. The revenue from this would estimated to be maybe $35 to $50 million next year. That could be invested in housing and in education.
Okay, we're a little bit past the halfway point now, so we get to shake things up a little bit with a lightning round, candidates. These are quick questions-ish, quick answers though, 15 seconds or less. So, as governor, will you support moving the state primary to June? John Kiper.
Yes.
Mayor Craig.
No.
And Councilor Warmington.
Well, yes. I mean, the Secretary of State has stated that they're having very difficult time complying with the requirements to get the ballots out in time for federal law. We do need to move it back, and I think June makes a lot of sense.
Councilor Warmington, do you support the idea of a road toll to account for people who drive EVs and don't pay gas taxes?
I do think that we need to address the fact that electric vehicles do not pay any road tax, yet they put a burden on our roads.
Mayor Craig.
You know, that's something that I'd have to look at. We need to make sure that we are being fair and making sure that we can upkeep our roads. It's something I would consider.
John Kiper.
Yeah, I think, whenever I see Jeff Bezos, Amazon, electric trucks, as much as I love that he's got electric vans now, they're always double parked right in front of my restaurant. And I just think about the fact they're not contributing to the roads. And I think Jeff Bezos has got the money to afford that. So, yeah, I think we should do that.
Next question. New Hampshire's lone death row inmate, Michael Addison, has a hearing later this month as he attempts to have his death sentence thrown out based on the prospective repeal of capital punishment passed by the legislature in 2019. Now, the state is actually fighting to uphold Addison's sentence. As governor, would you urge your attorney general to reverse course and not enforce the death penalty? Mayor Craig.
No.
Councilor Warmington.
I have been on the record as I am opposed to the death penalty, and I would be in favor, of course, working with the Executive Council, of commuting the sentence to life without the possibility of parole.
Mr. Kiper.
I do not support the death penalty.
Mr. Kiper, is it time to pay state lawmakers more than $100 a year, and if so, how much?
Thank you so much for asking this question, because frankly, that is why I'm here. I think we should start with a low number, because that's what we're going to get passed. So I would say $500 a week while they're in session. This would allow people like me, working class folks, to go up. Yeah, sorry, to go up to Concord.
Mayor
Forgot
Craig?
we're the lightning round. My bad.
Pay the state reps more, and how much?
I think it's something that is probably warranted, but there are a lot of challenges and that we have to consider with our budget, specifically public education, public affordable housing, and so much more. So, it's something that probably should happen, but I'm not sure when.
And Councilor Warmington, would you like to raise state lawmaker pay, and if so, how much?
We will be building a budget from the ground up, just like Granite Staters do around their kitchen tables, to make sure that we're meeting all the needs of our state, and we'll talk with the legislature about that.
And Councilor, nice segue there. What impact, if any, has inflation had on your own family budget?
Well, of course, the cost of everything has gone up, and Granite Staters are feeling this with prices at the gas tank, at prices at the registers in the grocery stores, and we need to really focus on making sure that we are meeting the needs of working families. Everything in my administration will be decided through the lens of the working families.
Mayor Craig, your own personal budget.
Yeah, we are not eating out as much. My husband and I are commuting to work, so we're trying to use one car as much as possible. But yeah, it has been tough, and we know that this is affecting families across our state, which is why it's really important that we have a governor who understands what's happening to families and can make sure we are decreasing costs wherever possible.
Lightning.
I know.
Mr. Kiper.
As a restaurant owner, the cost of food is evident to me every time I order more food, and it's getting harder and harder to turn a profit in a restaurant, and we're seeing less people come out, and it's really starting to hurt.
Okay, back to the more important questions now. Monica Hernandez.
To education now, a new assessment report just released today shows some slight improvement in the last year, but still only a little more than half of New Hampshire students are proficient in reading, and far less than half are proficient in math and science. The numbers are even lower in the state's two largest cities. The latest figures from 2023 show that in Manchester, fewer than 1 in 5 students are proficient in math and science, and less than 1 in 3 in reading. Councillor Warmington, we'll start with you. How would you improve public education statewide?
Public education is the bedrock of our democracy. That's what gives every single kid their shot at the future. And right now we have an all-out assault in our state on public education with a commissioner of education that doesn't believe in public education and who is using his voucher program to divert taxpayer dollars to private organizations. Now, parents can send their children to whatever private school they want, but they can't take taxpayer dollars away to get that done. Mayor Craig loves to tout her success on the school board and as mayor of Manchester, but the numbers tell a different story. The schools in Manchester are some of the worst performing schools in our state, 183 out of 189 in school districts. And these schools are also 27% of the kids in the Manchester School District don't graduate within 4 years. And that is more than twice the rate around the state. We need a commissioner of education that will believe in public education. I will nominate that person on day one.
Mayor Craig, you were invoked. 30 seconds.
Thank you. During my time as mayor, we worked very hard to improve public education in the city of Manchester, and we did. We set curriculum, standardized curriculum, for the first time in our district. Math, English, science, social studies. We increased professional development for our educators. We decreased class sizes. We are now improving our infrastructure and building a new high school. And we have set the foundation for generations to come in the school district in Manchester. And today, they are seeing an improvement in student achievement because of the work that we've done. I just have to say that it is so obvious to me that Councillor Warmington has never been a chief executive. It is really tough, and you have to make tough decisions, and sometimes those decisions you make take a long time to bear fruits. But we have worked so hard in the city of Manchester to make progress, and I think the last thing this state needs is a governor who is pitting one community against another. We need to bring people together to address these challenges that we are seeing across our state, and I will do that as your governor.
Councillor, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Sure. You know, I grew up in a family that we struggled to make ends meet. I got a great public education and got to be the first person in my family to ever go to college. I know the value of a public education. I wouldn't be standing here today without it, and I will protect public education. I will work with our cities and towns all across the state. The hallmark of my time on the council, remember, I'm in a minority of 1, and I am able to work across the table and get things done. And that is what I will do as governor.
Mr. Kiper, how would you improve public education statewide?
You know, this is a long-term plan, but what we really need to do is look at outcomes of our graduating seniors. We do not have a lot of data on what happens after they leave. We know if they went to college, but we don't know if they graduated. We don't know if they didn't go to college and instead got a job in the trades and are now making $100,000. We don't know which schools in our state are performing the best. So we really need to undergo a study of our graduating seniors and see which schools are performing the best. Because my town in Newmarket, we've got a great high school that is rated very high in the U.S. News and World Report rating, but frankly, it's not a fancy school. It's bare bones, I would say. The budget is not excessive, but we get the job done. We have great teachers, and that's really where we need to invest is our teachers. I've got a son who's in the 3rd grade. And, just COVID really set these kids back. It was COVID, and it's going to take some time to get these kids back on track. But I know that our teachers in New Hampshire are going to be able to do that.
Next question from Steve Botari.
Can I get the question?
Jurors,
You took your time to respond, Mayor Craig.
Can I say a few things? Because I responded to a.
Well, okay, we'll give you 30 seconds.
Thank you. It's critical that we make sure we are funding our public schools. and make sure that we have an education commissioner who understands and appreciates public education. Right now, we have a dangerous voucher program taking millions of dollars away from our public schools. We need to stop that and make sure we are funding public schools adequately. As mayor, I signed on to that Conval lawsuit. I believe that students, no matter where they live in our state, should have access to quality public education, and that will be my priority as governor.
Okay, next question from Steve Botari.
Jurors in the first civil trial for the victims of abuse at the former youth detention center were upset when they learned that the state law would cut the $38 million they awarded to the victim to just $475,000. Despite jurors saying they didn't feel fully informed about the law before they decided on this verdict, the state attorney general is fighting to keep that judgment as small as possible. Councillor Warmington, to you first. Do you believe the state is treating YDC victims with respect?
You know, this is one of the most tragic experiences in our state's history. So many children at YDC were abused, sexually abused, physically abused. It is just a stain on our history, and we need to do right by those people that our state was harmed. This is going to cost our state an enormous amount of money. I will be working with the legislature as governor to make sure that we put together a fund for the remediation of the damages that come out of these cases. There's many, many more cases to come, and we will make sure that we treat these young people, now adults, who with dignity and respect, and that we compensate them. We could never compensate them for what they experienced, but that we compensate them in an appropriate way for the harm that they have suffered.
Mr. Kiper, same question.
You know, this is just another result of New Hampshire being penny wise and pound foolish. You know, we could have spent a very small amount of money to have proper supervision at the Sununu Center, and instead we have this, you know, and these people deserve every penny that, that the judgment has allocated to them, because to have it happen, you know, in a state of New Hampshire facility, to me is just not acceptable. And we need to ensure that we are investing in social services going forward so something like this never, ever happens. And I'll tell you something, if my dad's name was on the building where this happened, I'd be doing a whole lot more about this issue than our current governor.
Do you believe the state is treating YDC victims with respect, Mayor Craig?
I don't. And it is horrific what happened to these children and now adults. And we need to make sure that we are compensating them for what they deserve. And to John's point, I absolutely agree. We need to make sure that we are taking this and unfortunately learning from it and making sure it does not ever happen again. Because we have seen so many instances lately where children have been victims in our state, and that is unacceptable. I would suggest that we separate the child services from DHHS and make sure it's its own entity so that they have the focus that they need, and make sure they have the line to the governor so we can talk about what their needs are from a staffing perspective. We need to make sure we have adequate staff and resources available to children and families in need in our state.
Next question comes from Monica Hernandez.
Now, Mayor Craig, your critics have pointed to the issue of homelessness in Manchester as a failure of your tenure as mayor. How do you respond to that? And in retrospect, is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, so this is a statewide, nationwide challenge. In 2020, I worked with every mayor in the state, and we were Democrats, Independents, and Republicans. And the number one challenge we all said that we were facing was homelessness. And you know, all of the mayors met again recently, a few months ago. The number one challenge that they're facing right now is still homelessness and housing. And so as mayor, I made progress on this statewide challenge with very, very little support from the state. And that's why I'm running, because we need to be supporting our local communities and the most vulnerable in our state. We opened up a shelter, the first city-run, city-funded shelter for fatality prevention in the winter. It's still open today. I got the National Alliance to come into the city of Manchester to analyze our programs. Their mission is to prevent and end homelessness. I would bring them to the state level to help all of our communities. And you know, the continuum of care in New Hampshire is inadequate. People are staying in our shelters far too long. There's not the next step. So that's why I am supportive of a housing first model that provides wraparound services so we can stabilize people and get them on a path to being better.
Councillor Warmington, is it the state's responsibility to step in and fund shelter for the homeless when beds at the municipal level are full?
You know, no one should be sleeping on our streets. There's no real secret about how to address homelessness. It's putting roofs over heads, wraparound services, and the necessary outreach to build trust so that these folks will come inside. This issue in Manchester has been a complete failure by Joyce Craig. We saw encampments all over the city being bulldozed, people being pushed from one place to the next so that their services were interrupted. They finally built an encampment on the main streets of Manchester. And the businesses that were harmed by that, as well as the simple humanitarian crisis that took place in those tents. Joyce Craig is often, as you just heard, citing all of her accomplishments, but she completely fails the humanitarian crisis that took place on the streets of Manchester. People died in those tents. Businesses were harmed by those tents. A childcare had to close because of needles on the street, and other businesses suffered as well. This was a complete failure of Mayor Craig.
Mayor Craig, 30 seconds.
Thank you. There is a constitutional law that allows people to be on a sidewalk. We did what we could with outreach and the limited beds that we had in the city of Manchester, but unfortunately our shelters were full. And the state wasn't providing support. In fact, Councillor Warmington actually approved decreasing funds to come to the shelter in the city of Manchester. It wasn't just me that was addressing this challenge. It was our city departments, it was our service providers, our nonprofits, faith-based community. This was a community who wrapped our arms around a challenge in the city of Manchester, and we did everything that we could to get people off the streets.
Councillor, 30 seconds.
Joyce Craig is absolutely incorrect. I have fought for every penny of money to address the homelessness crisis that has ever come before the council. I've been a champion. I reached out to her as an executive counselor because, quite honestly, her own relationship with her executive counselor, with the governor, is so toxic that she was unable to get things done. We need someone who can work together in a bipartisan way to make things happen for our state. Joyce Craig failed the people of New Hampshire.
Mayor Craig, 15 seconds, then we'll move to Mr. Kiper.
Thank you. I have the executive experience, the hands-on experience of addressing our statewide challenges when it comes to homelessness, when it comes to mental illness, when it comes to substance use disorder. And I understand that many times these issues are co-occurring. We have worked extremely hard in the city of Manchester, and many of the programs that we have implemented here have been picked up in other communities.
Mayor Craig. Monica.
Mr. Kiper, what should be done about homeless individuals who do not want help or housing but want to put up long-term camps on public land?
You know, I think we need to have state-sanctioned camping until we can get housing for all of these folks. We did it during the pandemic, and you know, it's not the best solution. I don't love this solution, but until we can get the housing that we need, we've got to stop pushing people from one street corner to another. I would like to see a program created where we had our vocational schools building tiny homes for homeless people. They're doing this in other states. I'd also like to see they did this in Maine, where they have people that are in prison training in the trades, so as electricians, plumbers, and carpenters, in building tiny homes for homeless veterans. That's a program I'd love to see in New Hampshire because I think that we've got all the resources. You know, I've got an employee who's in a vocational school and he's building a shed. He builds sheds, right? That's what he does for a vocational school. I'm like, this is basically a home. Why can't we just stick, you know, some electric in here and water and stuff and get homeless people off the street?
Just a quick show of hands. We want you to raise your hand if you think Manchester's new anti-camping ordinance is appropriate as a response to this crisis. Anyone? All right, that's 0. We've got to fill a little bit of time until we get to closing statements here, so we're going to bring back the lightning round. Just my favorite, I guess, nobody else's. But one question I want to ask you about, we didn't get to an energy question. We want to ask you quickly here, quick answers. John Kiper, what is a step you've taken in your personal life to reduce your carbon footprint? 15 seconds.
Oh, great question. I compost. I compost at my restaurant every day.
Mayor Craig, a step you've taken in your personal life to reduce your carbon footprint.
So as I mentioned, I am commuting to work with my husband. We're also composting at home.
All right, and Councillor Warmington.
I moved closer to downtown so that I could walk to work.
Okay, we've hit the closing portion of our debate, and we're going to begin with Mr. Kiper.
Thank you very much. So we've got a choice to make here coming up very soon on September 10th. And I'm asking the independent voters of New Hampshire, because you can vote in the primary, and the Democrats to turn out and vote for me. Because frankly, it's pretty simple, okay? Cinde Warmington will lose to Kelly Ayotte because of her ties to Purdue Pharma. Joyce Craig will lose to Kelly Ayotte because of homelessness in Manchester. I don't think it's either their faults that these things are going to bring them down, but frankly, those are the facts, okay? If you do not elect me in this primary, we will not get legal cannabis. We will not get any of these things because Kelly Ayotte will be the next governor. We need to stop listening to the Democratic establishment because they do not know how to pick candidates that the independent voters of New Hampshire want. I know this because the last 8 years, Chris Sununu has been the governor. Thank you.
Next up is Councillor Warmington.
We are also fortunate to live in the greatest state in the Union. But we have real challenges, as we've heard tonight, an assault on public education, an attack on reproductive freedom, and an affordable housing crisis. Young people can't afford to stay and live in our state. Seniors are having trouble making ends meet. Kelly Ayotte has made it clear she wants to continue with the current agenda. That is not going to get us where we need to go. And we certainly don't need any more of the failed policies in Manchester. We need a new direction in our state. We can choose right now to live in a state where everyone can love who they love and be who they are, and where every single teacher can teach the truth, and where every family can afford to put a roof over their kids' heads and feed them and clothe them and give them a great education. We've built a campaign that can win in November. I am endorsed by the most elected officials in this state, by mayors, by doctors, nurses, firefighters, and the State Employees Union. I ask for your vote on September the 10th.
And the final closing statement will be delivered by Mayor Craig.
Thank you. There is a lot on the line this election. Too many families and communities are being left behind. I'm running for governor to strengthen our local towns and cities and ensure that residents throughout our state have the opportunity to succeed. I have the executive experience. I understand the challenges that our local communities are facing and how the state should be supporting us. And I have a track record of getting things done. And I have built the strongest campaign to take on and beat Kelly Ayotte. I am tremendously grateful for the conversations that I've had with residents across this state, and I'm grateful for your support because together we can ensure that residents throughout our state have the opportunity to succeed, that we strengthen our public schools, that we tackle the housing crisis, and that we protect reproductive freedom. I ask for your vote on September 15th. Thank you.
Okay, if you missed any portion of tonight's debate, you'll be able to find it on the WMUR website or mobile app. You'll also find out more about all the candidates and information about how to cast your ballot for Election Day. And you can join us back here tomorrow night for a doubleheader to hear from Republicans and Democrats running in New Hampshire's 2nd Congressional District. Those back-to-back debates begin at 8 p.m. We want to thank the New Hampshire Institute of Politics at St. Anselm College for their partnership on this debate. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to the candidates for being here. Thank you, of course, to all of you for joining us. Have a good night.